grab your big book, your pen, your highlighter, and notepad and get ready to hear and apply some of the solution from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous through the experience, strength, and hope of Nikki M. To have a question addressed in a future episode of Noodle It Out with Nikki, please send an email to noodlewithnikki@gmail.com, and Nikki is spelled with 2 Ks. To get a more interactive experience with Nikki as she noodles out life and recovery questions using the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, you can get a link to her weekly Noodle It Out with Nikki meeting held live on Zoom every Monday morning at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. The information to that meeting is in the show notes of this podcast. God morning, God afternoon, and God evening to all. My name is Justin B. I am a son of an all-powerful, perfectly loving God and a addict living in the miracle of one day at a time recovery. And I am so grateful to be here in the Noodle It Out with Nikki podcast with my co-host, the spearhead, agent of God's ever-advancing creation, and my co-host, Nikki M. Nikki, why don't you say hi and introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. And yes, I am a spearhead. That is the right word. I heard your brains, like, what word do we use? A spearhead, according to our big book. And I'm a member of many fellowships, and I'm really grateful to be here today. What do I want to say? I'm a little tired. We meet Mondays after our noodle meeting. This morning we had over 150 people seeking God. And I think what works so great about that meeting, and if you're in any type of 12-step meeting, if you're in any type of like organization and you like your church groups or whatever, the reason our meeting works is we don't have a lot of organization. We just kind of meet, do what we need to do, and get her done. And it works out pretty good. So there's no rigmarole and no, we've got to pass this and talk about this. It's like, let's try it. And if it works, it works. And so I'm just so grateful for this lifestyle because my old lifestyle, it was good, but it doesn't compare to what I'm living now. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you, Nikki, and thank you for sharing that. I try and drop in on that noodle meeting for a half hour or so each week, and I was in there for a little bit today when I was able to. And yeah, the energy that's there for anybody who has not attended that noodle meeting, there's always high energy, high passion, and a lot of big book, a lot of big book. So if you haven't been there, you can find that information in the show notes of the podcast here, and join every Monday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And get in and do that. So you also mentioned one other thing, and I want to talk about this real quick before we jump into the noodle. This last couple of days ago, daylight savings time, the hour shifted and everything like that. And I don't know about you and anybody else out there, and this is going to come out a couple of weeks later, so everybody's brains will likely have adjusted by then. But man, it sure messes with my whole system every time it changes, whether it goes forward, backward, and emotionally, mentally, physically. I'm a mess for a couple of weeks. Nikki, talk about a little bit about that and how we can maybe deal with stuff like that.
Yeah, with the time change, which eats my soul, okay? How do we do that? It's literally, you guys, everybody, we need to live on page 88. This is all about discipline. And what's discipline? It's consistency. So if you know the time change is coming, go to bed earlier, or if you're going to lose sleep. You understand? Give yourself time. Like, I think the time change was like this weekend, and I didn't make heavy plans. I made sure, like, it's basically being armed with the facts, page 18. Like, know these things, know what you have to do, be consistent. If you know you're not good with a time change, and especially with Zoom, and we've got meetings and we work around the world and the planet, make sure that you get help with these things. Ask. I always have to tell everyone like this, Justin, I don't do time change. So I will always speak in my time zone, and you, young people, will have to be responsible for the time change. Now, if they're a little older than me, we'll work out it together. But no, I'm really honest. And I'm going to say it again, everybody. This is about discipline. It's like the time change is coming up. You know that, so do the things that you need to do. Winter's coming up. Let's go deeper. Get your sick kit together, everybody. What does that mean? Don't wait till you're sick to get your chicken noodle soup. Like, get some in the freezer. Don't wait till you're sick to get the whatever you take. I take homeopathic stuff, the oil of oregano, the lozenges. Get all the things you need before, because when you're sick and really in your poopy pants, it's going to be hard to do anything. So this is about being organized. This is not an easy lifestyle, Justin.
Yeah, thank you for walking through that, Nikki. That helps me in my own processes as I dread these time changes because my inner clock runs me. It's it dictates my entire life pretty much. All right. Today we're going to jump into a question that was in the Noodle chat, Nikki, and I'm going to go ahead and read this whole comment with a question in the middle of it, or most of the comment. I'll kind of bring it down a little bit, but here's what it is. The person says they say the alcoholic, the addict, can't afford to lose their temper, or anger is not a luxury of the addict. What do you do if you lose your temper and blow up on a person you've lived with for 2 years, for example? They were bringing me down with consistent negative talking and just like a mild discomfort that wasn't shifting. I blew up completely out of proportion, but meant everything I said as it felt like my truth. So, anyways, Nikki, the question basically is where does anger have a place? Where am I justified in this? What do I need to do when I'm so angry at something in this situation?
Well, this is a great topic and a great question because everybody, let's just go here, page 60. We are not saints. Okay, that's job is literally some of you listening, those are for your, that's for your friend Jesus. That's for your friend Prophet Muhammad. That's for your friend the Buddha. That's for, I mean, I don't hear much negative stuff about Gandhi. There's only a few people like this, Justin. So, number one, it's not for us to be perfect. So, accept that and accept what it says on page 118. It says you will make mistakes. It actually says here, that's why you've got to know your book. See, this is the program you chose. You chose a 12-step program, and it comes with one undiluted book. There's other books, and they may have a little bit of a diluted message or a different way of saying this message. But why mess with that when you can go to the original source, which says here, no, it's page 117. I'm sorry, everybody. It's page 117. It's a time change. Let's blame the time change. It says the faith and sincerity of both you and your sponsor, your God squad, your husband, your wife, your roommates will be put to the test. See, these workouts should be regarded as part of your education. So you're on Earth School. And the whole object of this game, as I see it, is really what am I going to learn and how can I get back to the original source, which is always love. So on here, you said, I just want to go through this question and thank you for posting it in our chat, Justin. It says, you know, they say, well, this is facts. This is facts that an alcoholic cannot afford or an addict cannot afford to lose their temper or anger. So they do say that. And they say it on page 111. So let's go there. Roll your book. It says on page 111, the first principle of success is that you should never be angry. Now, see, that's a tall order. That's a real, so it's true. That's not fake news. When they say that you cannot afford to lose your temper or be angry, that's true. We cannot afford it. Why? Well, page 66 says it's a dubious luxury. See, it's a dubious luxury for normal humans. And we've established, and that's why we're on this podcast. That's why we're in this rooms. That's why we are on this way of life. We're not normal. And I'm grateful for that, Justin, because we have a solution like we were talking about. Like we know a lot of normal people. Let's say our children aren't in the grip of this disease, or they have the isms, but we are armed with the facts. We know what to do. Maybe our sons, our daughters, our best friends don't because they don't have the solution. So we're actually the lucky ones to know that we can never be angry, to know that if we are to live, and we want to live, we don't want to just avoid, we don't want to tiptoe around people you live with. We want to be our authentic self. We tapped power. So we have to remember that if we want to live, we have to be free of anger. The grouch, being angry, the brainstorm, they're not for us. See, that's for other people. So we're going to make mistakes. We know that we can never be angry, and we know that's impossible to do. So what do we do? You said here, you blew up with this person, and it sounds like maybe you blew up because why? You lived with them for 2 years, you said, and you weren't being honest. Maybe they did something. You see, Justin, like imagine you and your wife. So for 2 years, you're just going to ignore the fact. Let's just make this up. I don't know. This is all just we're just giving scenarios. Maybe you don't like the way your wife chews her food. Okay, let's just go deep. Maybe she's chewing with her mouth open or whatever it is, making noises, and you go on one day, that sound is going to have you turn the tables upside down. And she'll be like, "What? I didn't know. I didn't know." So, first of all, you haven't been honest with your roommate. And you let this thing fester, because if we've been on a few pages already, but let's turn back to, we were on page 117. Let's turn back to page 118. See, this is what it says here. And then let's talk about it, and then we'll get into the solution, because it says, what do I do if I lose my temper? And I want to say why. Like, I want you to understand you're not being honest. You have to tell people along the way. Like a prime example, when I travel, Justin, I sometimes get, people to stay with my mom. It's a big house we have, and I'll get people. Well, I had this one with my friends, and he didn't do the dishes. He'd leave it in the sink. And so when I came home, my mom kept telling about how he didn't. I said, "Why are you telling me? Why didn't you are old enough, number one, to be this person's mother? Why wouldn't you stand up and say, you know what? We're living together for the next month. Would you please do the dishes?" Like, that's something that eats my soul. You could have nicer language, irritates me. And you know what? I think we're grown adults, and we both need to clean our dishes after every meal. Because if I go to cook my dish, if I go to cook my meal and I can't because your dishes are in the sink. See, that's page 18, arming people with facts. So page 118 says, you and your roommate, it says husband there, but we're going to put in roommate. See, you will find that you can dispose of serious problems. The lease is over. Should we move? That's a serious problem. So we need a new couch. That's a big problem. Easier than you can the trivial ones. The way they chew the food, the dish in the sink. They leave the TV on. They forget to put the toilet seat down. See, these little things, it says you can dispose of serious issues, serious problems easier than you can trivial ones. My line out says little stuff eats at my soul. Justin, does that resonate of why? Like, this is why we don't get angry, but this is sometimes why we do. Like, it's the little things.
Yeah, there are a couple things that came out at me as you were going through that, and as I read this question. To me, it sounds like a step 10 thing and a step 11 thing. So step 10 is, as we go throughout our day, we watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear when these crop up. I'm thinking that throughout the 2 years, this person that asked this question probably encountered resentment, selfishness, dishonesty, and fear many, many, many times, and probably didn't address it at the time. One of those things is, well, we ask God at once to remove it. We discuss it with someone immediately. That someone might be my roommate. Hey, you know what? I'm feeling some resentment right now because whatever is happening here. And if I've caused offense, I make amends, and then I turn my thoughts to be of service to someone, maybe to that roommate, maybe to somebody else. But the next thing that comes to mind is a couple pages over on page 87. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful. Agitation, I think that's what brought all of these things in from the get-go. But if I pause immediately when I feel when that agitation jumps in and ask for the right thought or action, and I'm no longer in charge, I then can get into service. I then can get my focus onto things that really matter. You talked about the little things that just, well, eat our souls, to use your language. Those little things that just bug us. But if I am aware of those step 10 items or those step 11 items of agitation and doubt, and I address them immediately, they don't become something that I blow up about 2 years from now. I take care of it now in a small, hopefully civilized way, and in a way that's helpful. Any further insights or thoughts on that, Nikki?
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's why the steps are designed like this. The step 10 is to be done all through the day. That's why we have it, because if you build these things up, it's like I go deep here, Justin, because I would call my mom all the time and I'd be like, "How are things?" We would talk. She lived in Arizona, and I'd be like, "Oh, fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine." And then one day I got the call that things weren't fine. Grandpa had took a pistol and did the unthinkable. And so we don't use the word fine in my house. Like, we address things right away. And this exact scenario happened with me and my mom the other day. Like, I was festering, and I said something and she said something and it escalated. Now I have a program, right? And she was sorry for what she said, and I said, of course, I love you, because why? I'm armed with the facts. Page 67 says this, page 66, this is our course. Perhaps the people who wronged me are spiritually sick. Now, go deeper, person who's writing in. See, I don't think you're remembering what your book says. It says page 60. Any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. So that's why I love what Justin said. Step 10, everybody. We watch. We're watchers. Hi, I should introduce myself as that. Hi, I'm Nikki, and I watch. I watch for my behavior, and I watch others. Why? Because we're in a spirit world, everybody. Not everyone's in the spirit world with us. We made the daily decision to turn our thinking, our will, and our lives, our actions to the care of a power greater than ourselves. Other people haven't. Justin, it is 2025, almost the end, and I'm watching people, and there's all this information out there. But there's this information that says 80% of the population are just NCPs, non-character players, NPCs, whatever they are. They're just humans here to fill in the void. They're just here like background characters in your kids, they play The Sims or they play this Robotech, whatever. I don't even know. I'm old enough to be a grandma. I don't know what the kids are into right now. It's like when I played Barbies. There was the background people, but the main Barbie in my hand was the main character. And so, I watch these people, but I don't necessarily have to engage. Does that make sense? Meaning that we watch in ourselves for fear. Are you watching in others for fear? And if they're in fear, why are you even engaging? Because our job is to be helpful. Because you read it, you took us there to step 11 on page 86, where it says, in thinking about our day, we face indecision. We may not be able to determine what course to take. I can guarantee this person is not doing this, because Nikki rarely does it. Here we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought or decision. Like, is everybody who's listening, are you doing that? Because, like, that's an instruction to be done every day. It doesn't say run to your sponsor, it doesn't say run to your therapist. Are you sitting and asking, what would these spiritual principles have me be? And then it says relax and then take it easy. So are you disconnecting from everything and thinking about these things? It says we do not struggle. Oh, I freaked out that, because you're like, what do you do if you lost your temper? Okay. Well, you ask God for an intuitive thought, decision, or inspiration. You've lost your temper. You better go, because Justin already said, pause. You have to pause. Then you can go do a step 10 and watch. You can share with somebody. And I love what Justin said. You discuss it with someone. Now, see, that someone is the person you're living with. That is the properly appointed authority to discuss when you're calm. So what you're going to do there is you're not going to struggle. See, you're going to remember what the book says. It says you're going to make mistakes. The book actually says this is exactly as it should be. Page, that's 117 again. It's part of your education. You're in Earth School. We entered a spirit world. So what, like for me, what did that do? Like when my mom and I had the thing the other day. So I went to my room, I paused. She went out. When she went out, then I went out and went and did my things. I came home. There were really no words, Justin. I just made dinner and I offered her dinner. That's as simple as it can be. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, get angry and now not offer her dinner? Because no, I'm gonna do the next right thing. Did we hash it up? No, because we're roommates and she's stuck with me for life. So, I mean, decisions based on self. So I have to remember my mom is untreated. She doesn't know better. Her life is run on self will. So when some people were over and we were talking about something yesterday, I said, "Yeah, Mom, you're doing really well. You're doing great. You're exercising and you're going to your aerobics, your swim aerobics. But you keep saying you're doing all these actions, but it's really a lot about your thought life. You're not thinking, good thoughts. You're still in your fear and in regret and shame." And that's not going to be helpful. And then I armed my mom with the facts. Like, what do you do if you lose your temper? You need to find the time to talk to the right person. Is this your roommate? This person lives with you, he or she, they. So you find the right time and say, because it's like an amends. It says number one, here's the amends process. You get permission. Roommate, can we speak? Because you have to get their consent. It says number one, this is on page 80. If we have obtained permission, roommate, could I have permission to talk to you? I would like to say some things. We had that fight the other day. Number two, you have to consult with others. Did you talk to your sponsor? Did you talk to whatever? Maybe it's over financial matters. Did you talk to your bank? Why the check was, did you get armed with the facts? Why was maybe the check bounced? I don't know why you're fighting. And then number three, you have to ask God to help. So if you did those three things, you got their consent, you consulted with others, and you asked God to help, then the drastic step that's indicated you don't shrink. So what does that mean? Well, it says, as God's people, you stand tall. You don't crawl before anybody. I was wrong, roommate. I should not have spoke to you like that. Okay, that's on page 83. It says we need to be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile and scraping. Because you're like, well, I said what I said, and it says I've not said anything in 2 years, and we share the house. I just couldn't take it anymore. So now you're going to get a solution. You're going to say, hey, do you think we should have a monthly meeting and just see if there's anything bothering you about me? I can tell you, or you could tell me, or should we write some house rules out? Or, like you get armed, you arm them with the facts, like you leaving the TV on when you're not home. It's costing money. It's the noise. And I don't want to touch your stuff. So could we work on that? You see what I mean? This is because go deeper. This is page 64, Justin. And I think we did a talk on it. It says here, and this is what you didn't do. It says a business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Well, we did a podcast that says a relationship that takes a roommate that takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. So that's why, let's go deeper. You were irresponsible. So back to what you need to do. You need to approach them. It says right here on page, I think it's 76, 70, 77 or something. It says maybe 78. It's in that area. It says, under no condition do you criticize or argue. You're there to sweep off their side of the streets. Their faults are not discussed. Let's see if I can find the exact page. Like, think about that, Justin. Like that. So what do you
Bottom
do
of
instead?
77.
Thank you. Under no condition. You're there to sweep off your side of the street. Like this is it says go deeper up there, go back on 77. It says, we go to the roommate in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill feelings, not actions. Your ill feelings was, I should not have spoke to you that way. Not, well, you are an asshole, so that's why I lost my mind. Like, think about those things. No, it's like you express your regret. I was wrong to speak. Why? You've acquired a better attitude. And even though you're not keen, you decided to live for God. You made the decision every day. Because if you roll your eyes on page 76, it says, remember, person who wrote this question, you agreed at the beginning you would go to any lengths for victory over your alcoholism, for victory over your addiction, whatever it is, food, sex, love, pornography, emotions. See, that's the any lengths is what do you do if you lose your temper? You pause, you course correct, because you certainly don't want to make it worse. Their faults are never discussed. Do those instructions make sense, Justin?
Absolutely. And once again, we go back to this. It's simple because these instructions are pretty simple, but it's not easy, especially in the moment when that agitation comes in, that resentment comes in, and I'm just playing it over and over and over again in my mind. I can't believe that he or she is chewing their food again that way. It just drives me up the wall. But man, I am just so grateful to have these opportunities to sit down with you, Nikki, and noodle things through. It opens my eyes to a lot of different things and places where maybe I've been turning a blind eye to resentment, to agitation that's happening in my life in certain areas that I haven't addressed because, well, whether it's I'm fearful to do it, or whether it's I don't think it's that big of a deal until 2 years later I blow up and ruin everything. So before I close this out, Nikki, do you have any final thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, like we've got to keep it says that's why we continue to take inventory, and when we're wrong promptly admit it. That's why we seek God. That's why we improve conscious contact, because imagine this. You don't tell your or she doesn't tell you. And then all of a sudden, not only does it blow up so big, it's like I can't take this anymore. We need a divorce. Do you have any people, Justin? I get a lot of messages. My wife and I are divorcing. They've spent years not talking. And then
Mm.
one person gets into recovery and the other isn't. And then this person's, I have a sponsee like that right now. She's awake and she's like, oh my God, what? Because she was so busy spending the last 18 years drunk. And she's waking up at 50 going, I don't even know this guy. Like, I can't. Again, this is what the question was. It says, they were bringing me down with constant negative talking. Well, now this person has entered the spirit world. They're seeing the reality. And then the question says, and just like a mild discomfort that was shifting, like, see, she let it's the same thing, everybody. You have a little scratch and you don't treat it. You don't put any polysporin or any antibiotic on it. And then you let it fester. And now it becomes an open wound and you still don't treat it. And now they have to amputate your hand. Like, this is how it looks in 12 steps. So you've got to constantly, that's why all 12 steps are here. So let's just, I mean, we do it, but we'll run through it again. Every day you need to say, I'm powerless over people, places, and things. Every day you need to remember you're not like other people. You don't get the luxury of getting angry. You don't get the luxury of having a resentment. You don't get the luxury of shrinking and not dealing with the situation, because that's why people blow up at work. They just sit there and they sit there, and the next thing you know, they've gone in our country, in your country too, Justin. We call it postal. They've gone postal. They've blown up everybody at work because they didn't ever deal with the problem. They didn't deal with the situation. And so that's why every day you need to remember that you made a decision, and that we know that any life run on self-will cannot be a success. So if you're living with someone and we watch and they have their life run on self-will, well, then you know it will not be a success. And that's okay. And then you mind your business, because it's not, as I was telling my son, like, we're not responsible for other people. Like, you don't feel guilty or bad because so and so or this person or that isn't okay. That's not your problem. Just like you're not my problem, son. You're 21. If you're not okay, that's not my problem. I have to take care of me. And that doesn't mean I'm putting myself first. I'm putting myself right where I need to be, equal with others. Right? Equal. We're all one. So, and then every day I look at my own mistakes. Every day I talk to the right people. Every day I get willing to grow in effectiveness and understanding. I get humble. Like I don't know. I've never been here before. This is not easy. And that's why our book says many pursue it to the gates of insanity or death. And they're not pursuing just alcohol or just the drugs or whatever your acting out behavior is. They're pursuing these resentments into the gates of insanity and death. And it's not that they're going to drop dead. They're the zombies that are walking around, Justin. So I just
Yeah.
want to, maybe as you take us out, I mean, give us your final thought, maybe even a prayer. I don't know, because I think the world is filled with exactly this situation. We burst out. Some people don't just say things. Person who wrote this, they actually do things, like they whip out a gun and it's over in 2 seconds because they let the fester with their neighbor and they can't take that noise anymore. And then we've got dead people.
Yeah. And I think how I want to take us out is kind of an invitation, or maybe a calling people out, calling myself out in the process. If you're sitting here listening to this and saying, yeah, but my situation is different. If you were in my situation, you would behave the exact same way. Well, maybe. But if I am practicing these principles in all my affairs, these step 10, step 11, these other principles of pausing and recognizing that I can't be angry. I can't, or it kills me, maybe kills other people because I make that horrible decision. Take a look inside, pause, clean up your side of the street, and take care of the things that you can control, because these other things will eat your soul and will bring you to places you do not want to be. So, anyways, keep coming back. Put these things into practice, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because, well, as you work it, it works, and you are worth it.